time flowing backwards, changing the past, and stopping World War III. How can a secret agent do all three when terrorists from the future are doing everything to stop him? I'll be explaining the story and diving into the possibilities of time travel, and this is how to beat the time inversions in Tenet. We start off in an opera house in the Ukraine, following a CIA agent whose mission is to extract an asset. The character has no name, so I'll be calling him John. Terrorists have stormed the opera house, taking everyone hostage and planting bombs. John finds himself trying to disarm a bomb and nearly gets killed by a terrorist, but is saved when a masked man kills the terrorist by firing a bullet in reverse. What the hell's going on? The masked man disappears as John is able to destroy the bombs, save the hostages, but gets kidnapped and tortured by the terrorists. To protect state secrets, he kills himself with a cyanide pill, only to find himself waking up on a boat, where his superior tells him he's now part of a top secret mission involving the mysterious code word, Tenet. Landing in Scandinavia, he meets a scientist who is studying objects from the future, which have somehow had their time reversed, or inverted. These inverted objects will always move backwards in time. For example, bullets will go back into the gun instead of coming out. Now, the implications behind this are freaking awesome. There are so many ways for someone to take advantage of this, not just firing a bullet in reverse. For example, I'd go full Walter White here and combine sodium and chlorine gas to make salt, because when that process is inverted, it makes a timed gas bomb. You could do the same thing with hydrogen and oxygen to make water, which, in reverse, will blow up. These objects are believed to be debris from World War III in the far-off future, which John has to stop. He decides he must get to the bottom of who's making the inverted bullets and why. He goes to Mumbai and teams up with a British agent named Neil, who seems like he knows more than he's letting on. Together, they break into the home of an arms dealer whose wife tells them that the inverted bullets are being made by Andrei Sater, a rich Russian arms dealer. John finds out that Sater has a wife named Kat and gets in contact with her. She tells him about Sater's import-export facility in Freeport. Neil and John tour the facility, discover there's a secret vault, and make a plan to break in. Later, we see their plan in action. As Neil and John are in the facility, a plane crashes into Freeport, causing it to go under lockdown. They are able to break into the vault, entering this room that's split with a divider with these two machines at the end. This room houses a turnstile, a machine that inverts the time of anything that comes through it. They notice there are holes in the glass divider made by bullets from the future that haven't been fired yet. Then a man in a SWAT uniform jumps out and attacks John, except he's moving backwards. He's inverted. If I was going to fight an inverted person, I'd always check if they are hurt. If they're in reverse, you've already hurt them in the fight that's about to happen. This might be the start of the fight for you, but it's the end of the fight for them. They learn that the metal box is full of plutonium and heading to Italy, which leads them to Sater, who he tells on his yacht that the plutonium will be passing through Tallinn. Why he wants it isn't clear, but it's linked to a metal drum filled with gold bars and papers that had been sent into the past. John leaves the boat and reunites with Neil and a team of agents in Tallinn. They steal the case of plutonium from a convoy, and suddenly, Sater and his men drive by to take the plutonium, inverted and wearing masks. The reason why they need the masks is because their breathing is reversed. If they breathe in normal air, they'll suffocate. An obvious weakness in inverted people is their dependency for masks. The first thing I would try to do is rip them off or break them. Sater threatens to kill Kat if John doesn't give up the case of plutonium, so John tosses it over to Sater as a mysterious silver car crashes and inverts itself. Sater escapes, Neil and his team get caught in a shootout, while Kat and John get taken by Sater's men. Inverted people are in the future, so they know what you're going to do, but you still have one advantage. Keeping a spy satellite overhead can help you track when and where someone has been inverted. You can set up traps ahead of time, like diverting traffic, spike strips, or even sabotage the supply of masks if you know where they are. Sater's men drag John to a warehouse where he talks to an inverted Sater inside the turnstile's divided rooms. The Russian man threatens to kill his own wife if John doesn't tell him where the case of plutonium went. Kat gets shot, and John lies about where he left it. Suddenly, a team of special forces raid the compound, led by Ives, who rescues John in the nick of time. Sater was using a trick called a temporal pincer maneuver, where a team inverts themselves and tells their normal time counterparts knowledge of the future for the upper hand. I might try to go one step further and use this method against someone by pretending to be one of the inverted soldiers that leads them into a preset trap. John, Kat, and Neil invert themselves to reverse Kat's gunshot wound, while John goes back into the past to help himself out, driving the same silver car we saw before, going back to stop himself from handing off the plutonium. But we see that his past self pulled a trick, tossing an empty box to the inverted Sator and the plutonium into the silver car. The car crashes, and Sator takes the plutonium and sets the car on fire, causing an explosion. But because John is inverted, he goes through hypothermia and has to get treated. When he wakes up, he realizes one very key thing. The past cannot be changed. It can only be turned back. This is a very important difference, but there's still a way you can beat it. Defeating an outcome that has already happened will not work, but creating an outcome that is yet to happen is possible. I would try to make someone in normal time believe that things are destined to go one way for a specific outcome. This kind of strategy needs some knowledge of the future from your inverted self, but it's definitely a way to win. Dressed in SWAT gear, John and Neil sneak Kat into Freeport to revert themselves to normal time just as the plane crashes. John gets blown away by an inverted explosion and dragged into a fistfight with his past self. Escaping, John finds out that Sator plans on inverting the entire world by combining the 9 pieces of inversion technology, including the plutonium, to create what they call the algorithm, hooking the inversion bomb up so that if he dies, the bomb blows up. The 2 field agents link up with Ives and his Spec Ops team. Neil inverts himself with the blue team, and John goes in with the present time red team. Something very crucial they bring up is when working with an inverted teammate and they don't show, it's a clear sign that something bad happened to them. The team split up and enter the city where Sator is hiding the bomb. They get ambushed by one of Sator's men, who begins to put the algorithm into the bomb. Kat kills Sator to avoid running into her past self and kickstarts the Deadman switch. At the same time, the dead inverted soldier gets up, unlocks the gate, and runs out, because he's closing it in reverse. This actually gives me an idea. You could pretend to be a dead inverted soldier when you're actually a normal one. Since the guards are thinking you're probably inverted, you could easily ambush them. John and Ives make it through the gate, get the algorithm out of the bomb, and escape just before it blows up, as Neil comes to rescue them. Ives, Neil, and John agree to spread the pieces of the algorithm around the world. Not only that, but he finds out he inverted himself way into the past to recruit Neil for this mission, and that Neil was the man in the opera house and who opened the gate, and that John was the one who started Tenet. This whole movie was one giant temporal pincer maneuver set up by himself and Neil to save the world. There you have it, ways to beat someone using the time inversions and ways you can use them. But what do you think? What else could be done? What crazy ways could you use the inversions for? Let me know in the comments down below. With that said, thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and if you want more videos like this, there's already a playlist up on the channel where I've covered how to beat child-eating shapeshifters, masked serial killers, and survive death games. Until next time, have a damn good day.